Good stuff. Well, welcome to those that have joined. Just waiting for a few more people, so just going to give it a few more minutes before I get started. Just a few kind of audience reminders, just before we go any further, and just while we're waiting for more attendees to join. You should be kind of on mute as you come through, but please do ensure your microphones are switched off. That's not because I don't want to engage with you. It's just so obviously you can hear all the background noise and nobody else can. Doesn't kind of interfere with either the recording or with the experience of anyone else. We will be having a Q&A at the end of the session, but do feel free to type any questions that you have in the chat box kind of as we go through. That's fine. If questions kind of pop in throughout the session, I'll do my best to answer them as we kind of go along. But as I said, there will be questions at the end. So if I miss any of your questions throughout that maybe you've put in the chat, kind of as we're going through, I will come to those at the end because they'll stay in the chat at the end. But if something I say doesn't make sense or you want me to repeat something, do let me know. Just so we can test that for those that are on the session now, if you maybe want to just pop in the chat, hopefully you can all hear me and you can all see me. You should be able to see the slides as well. So that if you want to just put a thumbs up or just jump onto the chat and say yes if you can hear me, that would be that'd be useful. Hi Ben. So I'm assuming you said hello, so that's an indication you can see and hear me okay. So that's fine. So I think, it's a few minutes past 1. We'll get cracking. You've probably got me for about the next half an hour. It's probably going to be 15 minutes or so of me talking through the content for today, and say questions at the end. We've not got a specific time limit, and the timing will always depend on how much caffeine I've injected this morning. If I do go too quickly at any point, do obviously just let me know if you want me to repeat anything. So we'll get started. So what I'm aiming to cover this afternoon, first of all, I'm going to talk about the current state of the job market, one of the reasons that we're here, the current state of the job market and what the sort of redundancy situation is currently looking like. Then I'm going to talk about how to prepare for those redundancies and how to manage those redundancies, separate things, but obviously connected, post-redundancy support, and obviously Q&A at the end. And so just for anyone that's just joined us, because a couple of people have just popped in there, do feel free to ask questions throughout the session. I'll do my best to answer them as we go if you'd like, but there will be Q&A at the end of the session. But those are the topics really for this afternoon. So a little bit about me, not too much about me. I've just noticed somewhere in the same top as in that lovely picture as well, which is slightly embarrassing, but never mind. So my name is Laurence Martin. I'm the Client Services Director for an organisation called Outplacement First. And really, I'm proud to lead a team. We look after individuals that are facing change. It may be that their roles are at risk, that they're facing redundancy, redeployment, retirement, some sort of transition within the workplace. We've been in the game for about 20 years. We're one of the oldest providers of outplacement support, kind of on the market, as it were. And I lead that organisation. So we really specialise in that kind of post-redundancy, post-change support for individuals, which is one of the reasons I'm obviously here today talking to you all. So the current landscape, what's the current situation? Because obviously the need and the requirement for outplacement support, for post-redundancy support, really does depend on current situation, what the world of work is like at the moment, the current economic situation, etc. And we are very much working in uncertain times. One could argue we've been working in uncertain times for the last 3 and a bit years. This year, 2023, the number of planned redundancies has rocketed by 54%, so quite a large increase in reported planned redundancies across the market in the UK. 34% of businesses say that economic pressure is also causing them to hold back on recruitment. So you've got this kind of double-edged sword of planned redundancies and a lack of opportunities because organisations maybe that are not making redundancies are not recruiting. So thus even more need for support for individuals that are in the first pool of people, because it's not going to be as easy for them potentially to transition into a new role. The redundancy rate now being reported is close to pre-pandemic levels. largely due to the cost of living crisis and other factors. So situation really uncertain at the moment, but the factor there that organisations are planning redundancies, they are cutting costs for a number of reasons, the cost of living crisis being one. And because of that, and because of that general slowdown, there is that lack of opportunity, that holding back on recruitment. It's one of the first things that you shelve. We want to maybe protect our existing workforce and not make any redundancies, but in order for us to do that, we can't afford to recruit anybody else. And that means those individuals that are being made redundant, there is this kind of lack of potential opportunities to move forward, and thus a little bit more support maybe is needed for those individuals. When it comes to preparation, now this is kind of key thing, and there's HR managers, HR professionals. A recent survey by the CIPD showed that 78% of HR managers have been involved in managing redundancies within their organisations. It's a sad thing, but it is a true fact that it is increasingly a large part of the role of an HR manager is managing and preparing for redundancies. However, a large majority of those individuals don't feel adequately prepared for the process. It is a difficult process to manage. A lot of the HR managers that I speak to are not only managing the process for others, they're actually going through it themselves as well. And that's not uncommon within an organization for an HR manager or for members of the HR team to actually be in the pool of people that are at risk, as well as managing those that are being made redundant. So it is a difficult situation. It's a difficult situation to manage. You're managing lots of moving parts. Every individual reacts differently, and everyone it reacts differently to the kind of change and to redundancy that might be coming up for them. Some people view it positively, some less so. So really being prepared for that and to manage that transition does become a kind of key part of the process. A few things to consider in terms of how redundancy impacts those employees that are placed at risk. Okay, so as I said, everyone reacts differently, some more positively than others, but some of the common factors, some of the common things that affect employees, naturally stress and anxiety increases. Any considerable change in circumstance will often result in stress and anxiety. We tend to, all of us, build up our entire lives around work, hobbies and pastimes and family situation. We build around work and we secure an income and we build everything else around that. When work is taken out of that equation, obviously stress and anxiety increases. As I mentioned, linked into that, it does have a big impact on the personal and professional life of employees, not just the professional life, the personal life as well. And if you're in your organization a long time, you build up those relationships with the people that you work with. Your whole life is kind of focused around where you work for a lot of people. You see a decrease in employee engagement. If you feel you're working for an organization that quite frankly doesn't want you anymore, you're going to feel less engaged in the work that you're doing. You're going to feel less motivated, and you're going to feel less motivated to go and engage and do your job every day. A lot of the people that I support and look after will say, look, I'm at risk. I'm being made redundant. I've got 2 months left. Naturally, I don't want there to be a drop-off in standards and performance, but I feel really demotivated. How can I possibly motivate myself now, knowing that this organization doesn't want me anymore and doesn't maybe view me as valuable as I thought? It can lead to a distrust in management. Certainly if the process isn't managed as well as it could be, or it's not been prepared as well as it could be, or there's been a lack of clear communication, that can only lead to distrust. It can lead to, kind of Chinese whispers type situation. Sometimes it leads to staff wanting to jump before they are pushed. So it can actually lead to an increase in staff leaving, even those that are maybe not within the redundancy pool start to consider their position within the company. Almost like, well, if this is how you treat my colleagues, even though I'm not within that pool myself, maybe it's time for me to move on and look for something else, or it is going to be coming for me further down the line. Yes, I'm not being made redundant now, but a lot of my colleagues or a lot of my team members or even those in other departments are, maybe I should look to move on as well. So whilst you're reducing your existing workforce to cut costs, or all the other reasons that the companies make redundancies, it might be that you actually see shortages in other areas that you hadn't anticipated. So that's something really to consider when it comes to the impact redundancy has on employees. Just to look at that slightly more closely, so 52% of employees that are facing the threat of redundancy reported experiencing heightened levels of stress and anxiety during the redundancy process. There's more than half really reported experiencing stress and anxiety. So a large part, obviously stress and anxiety, moves into all areas, professional and otherwise. So yeah, just a quick one. So Ben just jumped on with a question there. So I'll try and answer this as we go through. Any advice on how to prevent an us and them mindset? That's a really good question, and it's something that really comes into the preparation. If communication is poor, if the situation is not communicated in a transparent way, that just increases this idea of it's us and them. It's us making the decisions and it's them being made redundant. What you're really looking for is a transparent communication process all the way through, and a sort of collaborative approach to redundancy. This idea that we're all in the same boat as much as possible, and all you can really do is be as clear as possible with communication. The lack of communication increases that distrust and just increases that sense of us and them, which is what we're really trying to avoid. Just coming back to this slide, so 45% of the surviving staff members experience a decline in their morale and engagement levels following a redundancy announcement. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not just staff that are being made redundant this affects. Those staff that are not being made redundant also see a decline in morale and engagement levels, because we want to feel engaged and in tune with the organisations that we work for. If you work for an organisation, you work as part of a team, and you work for a company hopefully that's got a really good culture, and all of a sudden you're seeing your colleagues and the people that you work with and the people that you've built up that professional relationship with being made redundant, naturally you feel less in tune and less engaged with the organization as well. And it does create this maybe I should jump before I'm pushed as well sort of mentality. So really something to consider. So there's large proportions, so more than half experience stress and anxiety, and nearly half of those left behind also talk about a decline in morale and engagement and motivation levels. The good news, so it's not all negative, and this isn't here to kind of depress you on a Wednesday afternoon. HR managers and business owners can turn redundancy from a setback into a springboard, and that sounds like a bit of a buzzword, I know, but actually that's very true. Compassionate communication, proper support initiatives for your employees. You can really empower employees to embrace change and emerge stronger. And again, a lot of the people that I support, where the process has been managed well by their organization, maybe before they're referred to us, and obviously we see all sorts, where the organization has really communicated clearly and in a transparent way, where the idea of support initiatives has been introduced right from the beginning of the consultation period, so employees know that they're not going to be going through it on their own. They do tend to view it less as a negative thing and more as a positive. They view redundancy less as I'm losing my job, and much more as this is my opportunity to go and do something new, to go and do something different, to go and work for a different organization. So viewing it as a positive opportunity rather than a negative setback. And that slight shift in mindset, it often is down to how the process is managed and how it's managed in a sort of transparent and open communication way. Research does suggest that organisations that handle redundancies well and provide effective outplacement support see that improvement in employee retention rates. So whereas when it's managed badly, we see that lack of engagement, that increase in anxiety, those surviving members of staff really feeling disengaged. Where it's obvious and where you can see that the process is being handled properly, employees, there is an improvement in employee retention. Those that are left behind are more likely to stay because they feel that they work for a supportive organisation, where they can see that those people affected are getting supported and looked after properly. That really does see an improvement in employee retention. So that's an important thing worth mentioning. So is it all worth this effort, this extra effort into communicating and preparing properly and providing support for individuals? Is it worth it? Well, yes is the answer. There are benefits for both the redundant employees, for those remaining, and for the business as a whole. Obviously, for those employees that are being made redundant, providing them with post-redundancy support or outplacement support through a provider like ourselves, and there are others, provides clarity and closure, aids a smooth transition. It means that they can do an effective job search, and it reduces emotional distress and actually preserves their morale throughout the process. For those left behind, for those surviving employees, it demonstrates the company's commitment to fair treatment and compassion, boosts confidence in their job security, and really just it reinforces the sort of work culture that you've already got. And actually, there's benefits for the business as a whole. Providing good support for those employees, even those that are being let go, it increases your organization's brand reputation. It promotes your image as an organization as a good place to work. It fosters that trust and loyalty amongst employees. It can actually lead to an increase in productivity as well. So lots of benefits for all parties kind of affected in this. When it comes to this management, so some key points just to consider when it comes to creating a positive redundancy plan. First of all, create a clear plan and a timeline to present it to everybody. And that's everybody, not just those that are being affected. And this is where this kind of us and them thing comes in as well, as to one of the questions I had earlier. If you only communicate information to one group and exclude another group, that just creates this sense of distrust and kind of disjointed approach. So a clear timeline presented to everyone, establish clear communication channels and remain transparent with all members of staff, and plan and build in regular staff updates. Don't leave them guessing. And I would introduce the idea of support, of post-redundancy support, of outplacement support at the beginning of the process. Right at the beginning, if you introduce the idea of support, yes, this is happening, and yes, you're going to be supported through it properly. Not something you should just chuck in at the end when it's too late, someone's already disengaged and feeling really anxious. From the beginning of the process, as part of your clear and positive plan, talk to your employees about the fact that you're going to provide them with support. That can be emotional support, it would be career transition or outplacement support, and support for those remaining. And we provide support for those remaining in the organization as well. Change, dealing with change. Your organization has gone through a period of change. Yes, your role is remaining. Some of your colleagues have left, you're unsettled. We can provide you with support for those employees as well. Again, some more figures for you. So according to a recent ACAS study, organizations that effectively manage the redundancy process experience a 50% increase in employee engagement compared to those that don't. So just effective management, effective communication, and the provision of support really makes a large difference to how engaged your employees are at the end of this process. Okay. So a few kind of takeaways, really. So communication strategies should be transparent and honest. Handle those difficult conversations rather than avoiding them. Again, avoiding those difficult conversations just leads to this greater sense of anxiety, distrust, this us and them mentality. Provide your staff with regular updates. Remember as well, for those of you that are managing this process, those of you that work in HR, do take that time to look after yourselves as well. It may be that you're within the pool whose roles are at risk. It may be that you're not, but it is a difficult process to manage, a process that can be improved with some of the steps that I've talked about. But nevertheless, take that time to take care of yourself. Do seek support for yourself. Focus on the things that you can control and celebrate the successes when you have them. That's really, really important. And that's something that's a message I really kind of give to people that are looking for a new role, that are going through redundancy as well, is you've got to celebrate those successes and grab the positives with both hands whenever you get them. Okay. In terms of post-redundancy support, so 83% of organisations that provide post-redundancy support reported positive outcomes for employees and for the company. So it does work, and it is something positive. It isn't just something that's there as a kind of add-on just to tick a box. They really do see sort of positive results from it. It's really worth thinking about. That redundancy support, post-redundancy support might look like an outplacement service, an outplacement program. That's something that we provide, and obviously by all means you can talk to me about that either at the end of the session or kind of offline. We provide support and assistance in terms of coaching, one-to-one programs and group programs for those affected by redundancy, for those remaining, and also for other people within the organization, maybe those that are approaching retirement that aren't looking to move into another job, but nevertheless might need a little bit of support as well. Okay, so few takeaways just kind of to wrap up. So don't ignore the situation, be prepared for it, be as transparent as possible. Offer support for all your staff, those that are being made redundant and those that aren't. Celebrate the wins and continue support after redundancies have taken place. Okay. So just get these slides to move on. So Q&A now. I think we did have another question, so which we'll move on to this. So another question for Ben, and no need to apologise for asking questions, Ben. That's what we're here for. So, wonder if there's some ways to help employees cope with the emotional side. Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, moving through those steps that I've talked about, the emotions of an employee will be greatly improved if they feel that they've been communicated to openly and honestly throughout the process, that they've been given regular updates and being kept in the loop. But that's something really that the sort of post-redundancy or the outplacement support addresses as well. Pretty much all of our one-to-one programs and our group programs as well focus first of all on coping with change, building resilience, understanding how we react mentally to change, and then putting some coping strategies into that. Then the act of really kind of developing someone's CV and getting someone ready for their job search is a great way of boosting confidence, because it gets you focused on the things that you're good at, the things that you enjoy. So both in how you communicate throughout the process and in the support that you provide will really help with that kind of emotional side. Got another question from Sophie. So in terms of open communication, would you recommend speaking to the team as a whole or one-to-one? So the answer to that is a mixture of the two, actually. So in your general announcements, you want to speak to everybody. People don't want to feel excluded, and we don't want to create a culture of us and them. So announcements about redundancy should be made to everyone, so everyone's in the loop with what is happening. But there should be some one-to-one interactions as well, in particular to those that are affected. Again, usually there's opportunities for redeployment. People are affected in different ways, so you're going to want to talk to people on a one-to-one basis so you understand how they specifically are coping, the sort of support you want to put in place for them, but obviously general announcements to everybody as well. So a mixture of the two. Obviously there are going to be certain things that are personal and unique to each individual that you're going to want to speak to them about on a one-to-one basis. Their own consultations would always have to be one-to-one. The idea of support, the type of support, the areas in which they need support, but obviously general announcements about the redundancy process. People don't want to be missed out from that. Okay. Specific ideas on how to boost morale with staff who remain. That's a question from Lucy. Yeah. So again, this is something that we cover in our programs. We do a full program on coping and dealing with change, and that's change. It maybe doesn't affect you directly, but change within the organization that you work with around building resilience, some coping strategies, focusing on the positive things. But again, that morale and that boost of morale to staff that are remaining within the organization is generally increased if the process is managed properly all the way through. If those remaining staff have been communicated to throughout, been kept in the loop throughout, have not been excluded from announcements and from key messaging, naturally their morale will improve, as well as sharing positive updates with them. Obviously, there are some things that are confidential, but where you're getting positive updates from those staff that have been made redundant, that are then moving into support, and then securing other roles elsewhere, share those positive updates with staff. We update the organizations that provide us with clients, we update them on how people are getting on post-redundancy, when people have been successful, when people have secured new employment and new roles. And those are great things to share with existing staff. Actually, these 3 team members were made redundant. They're all doing really well. They've all had some support, and they've all secured new work elsewhere. That's a kind of a great way of looking at it, because it really increases this idea that actually they've been looked after, and they've actually done well out of the situation. Okay. Good, thank you. Any other questions from anybody? where it goes quiet. Thank you. Okay, well, that looks like that's kind of it for questions. What I'll do is I'll just pop my my email address here into the chat so that anyone can take this down. If you have any other questions following when I close the session down, or if you're anything like me, as soon as I end the meeting, you'll think of a question, do feel free to email me. If you're interested in finding out more about the sort of post-redundancy support that we offer organizations, so we have a range of programs for people from entry level right up to senior directors and everybody in between to arrange a complete array of budgets. We do one-to-one and we do group sessions in person and online. So we kind of cover everything, including pre-retirement. If you're interested in getting more information from us, do let me know. Drop me an email at my email address there. Otherwise, thank you all very much for attending, and for listening to me ramble on for the last half an hour or so. Hopefully it was interesting and useful. Any feedback is obviously welcome. Do drop any feedback you have into the chat. Otherwise, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the week.